What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a special NFL edition of the Black Culture Podcast. I am the Willie Ashford. That's my man Price over there. How you doing, dog?
Man, I'm feeling great, my brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Football season is back. My favorite sport. I love football. I love to watch it. Um, I can watch any football game. Literally, like I was watching a high school football game earlier. I love the game of football. And if you talk about the history of football, everything we do here, we talk about the culture, how it affects the culture, how it relates to the culture. And let's talk about black quarterbacks, right? If you look around the NFL right now, not just some of the top players, but you can't name your top five quarterbacks without at least mentioning two or three African American quarterbacks. That just shows you how far we come to when there were times where they didn't even want us to play quarterback. They didn't think we were smart enough. They didn't think we were
Yep.
intelligent enough. They didn't think we could do the things that the Troy Aikmans, the Joe Montanas, the Phil Sims of the world. There were certain things that they didn't think we could do, even though we had a Warren Moon who's considered one of the best passers of all time, one of that was part of one of the best offense that a lot of people in their day said was one of the best offense. So despite all of that, they still did not allow us. But as you fast forward over the years, you come up upon some Dante Culpeppers, you come upon the Michael Vicks of the world, the Donovan McNabbs, and they still kind of nitpick at the narrative of black quarterbacks. They said we could they named us mobile quarterbacks. For years it was, well, they can run around, they're great athletes, but they can't pass the ball. For years they dibbled and dabbled with that narrative until a guy, and to me, I would say Donovan McNabb was actually a great passer. Donovan McNabb was, to me, if you mentioned black quarterbacks before the people we're about to name now, Donovan McNabb to me was a great, excellent passer. Then you fast forward a little bit to a guy by the name of Cam Newton, right?
Killer Cam.
Cam Newton came in and he had everything in your typical prototypical quarterback. They always talk about size. Cam has size.
Oh
They
yeah, a
always
lot of
talk
stuff.
about, yeah, they always talk about arm strength. Cam had arm strength. There's so many things that they talked about, but the one thing that they always tried to point out again was what Cam was a mobile quarterback. And to me, in my eyes, it's just my opinion, mobile quarterback was another way for them saying he's a black quarterback. He can't play this position. So look at today, right? You go a guy by Patrick Mahomes who came in. When you talk about a guy that just revolutionized the game, you talk about a guy that just changed the game. Like Patrick came in, first year starting, shattered the touchdown record, shattered the passing record. Should have been to the Super Bowl, but when his teammates didn't know how to stay on side, so he did not make it to the Super Bowl. Then you have Lamar Jackson comes in his second year, the first ever unanimous MVP. There's been millions, thousands of MVPs in the league, right? In the NFL. Lamar Jackson, an African American, is the first ever unanimous one. They voted him that. So, Price, man, talk to us about, and I know you have some other things you want to get into, but talk to us about the state of the NFL of the African American quarterback, and not only that, but how it affects the culture going forward.
Oh man, loaded question, brother. But I mean, I think to that effect, it changed the culture of the NFL. Period. Right? Because just think about it. There was a time in the NFL where there were very few black players, if any. And now you're talking about being a black quarterback, which is number one, the highest paid position on the team, most important position on the team. And we're not just talking about that group of young men that you just named. Those aren't just black quarterbacks in the league. Those are black starting quarterbacks in the league,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that makes a tremendous difference, which opens the doors for more. So now you got young kids modeling themselves after those quarterbacks because they're going to be the next generation. As far as the way it affects our culture, you got to think about it. So just take Cam. When Cam came in, he not only revolutionized the position at being a 6'5" quarterback who could throw and move, but even his style of play, even the way he celebrated, that caught media attention, and that's what made him even bigger than
Mm-hmm.
life. And you know, you saw him when he came out of Auburn, how big he was, and then he took that same swag to the NFL. He changed the whole swag of the league. Of course, they want to put all these different types of labels on you and whatnot, but nobody could deny how good he actually was. And in essence, he kind of paved the way for you got your Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott. Like he lightweight paved the way for those guys to come in. So now we're talking about a whole class of black quarterbacks. Now you got the Justin Fields, you know what I mean? Like guys just coming in and being able to play the game at an entirely different level than it was played before. But I think they changed the culture because of their athleticism and what they're able to do. This new breed of QBs are more than just pocket passers. I mean, you got your Tom Brady's, your Peyton Manning's, you know, you got your guys who are known for just being able to stay in the pocket and not being so mobile, and they were excellent at that. But this new breed, this new generation, and even the white QBs are starting to kind of incorporate that into their game a little bit more. You know,
because you have to play the game. You have to play the game like that now because it's so much faster. Listen, man. This is a Black Coach podcast. I'm gonna say it. Zach Wilson that's a white quarterback, but he plays it like a black quarterback. Like when I look at Zach Wilson, like I see like a young Kyler Murray, like moving around, like athletic. Like you can't listen, man. Back in the day, it kind of forced us to have to play the quarterback position like them. Right. No, they have to play it like us now because if you ain't mobile, if you can't move around, then you're not going to survive.
Right, exactly. And the whole point, so Cam was a different breed. So is Lamar because they know that they can score. But traditionally, quarterbacks are run one so they wouldn't get smashed in the pocket when it's collapsing around them. But also they can either get the first down or be able to move out of bounds so they can move the football and they won't get hit. But nowadays, when you got quarterbacks that can score, that can run a 4-2, you know what I mean? That can actually look, I can have the choice to pass, hand it off, or I can run this ball in myself, and we're still going to win this football game. Now you're seeing a lot of the QBs starting to incorporate that into their style because, number one, I think from even a marketing perspective, back in the day, you had your elite athletes, but nowadays it's all about celebrity endorsement deals, and that makes your market value go up. So if I'm a quarterback and just say my contract is up next year and I've been doing well and I want that big extension, not just the deal you're going to get with the league, but outside endorsement deals, how big is your reach? Like before we got on tonight, you talked about me, like you talked to me about Cam being a backup quarterback. You were saying his celebrity, his aura is so big that he really can't go anywhere and be a backup. Right? So guys coming into the league notice. I mean, hell, when Justin Fields got drafted, literally the very next day, his commercials were airing.
Yeah.
Literally the very next day. And not just him, but with other players too. I think Trey Lance had a commercial. It was a few other players that had some. But it's like brands are recognizing that, like, you're a stud athlete. Let's capitalize on that. And I can tell you right now, even when we talk about the culture of the NFL, black athletes, whether you're a quarterback, wide receiver, Terrell Owens, OBJ, any of those guys, even when Ocho was playing, they brought such swag to the game that it changed the culture of the NFL, where it was no longer just this corn-fed, homegrown, all-American sport. No, because I'm going to say this. For a long time, football players, unless you were really into the game, were really hard to recognize because they wear those helmets. So for the average person on the street, you would probably look at dude and be like, okay, he probably a professional athlete, but I would recognize a basketball player more than I would recognize a football player. Nowadays, it's not like that because their celebrity has gotten so big, and that's what black athletes did for the game of football.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let you close it out, but I'm in my last statement with this. Just think about over the years, the trends and you talk about how Cam changed the game, right? Think about all of the trends that we've started, right? Just a few I want to point out. The sleeves that people wear in football now. First off, that started in basketball. Allen Iverson started that. No one was wearing sleeves in sports. But if you want to go to football, from what I remember in the comment section, correct me if I'm wrong, but Robert Griffin III at Baylor started wearing those sleeves on his arm. Then all
He
of a
did.
sudden, now everybody's doing it, right? You go back to the visor, right?
Right.
Black athlete, you go back to the Dickie, literally came from Eric Dickerson. He had his own face mask, right? So it's so many trends that we start. There's so many things that we start that continue to go on from years, and you look back like, man, we've had a stamp on this league because for years they really just tried to force us to the defensive side of the ball or running and catching because again, they didn't think we were smart enough. And I just want to salute to all the black athletes, black quarterbacks, because now they have to play the game our way. We
Yep.
don't have to adjust to them. They have to adjust to us because on the defensive side of the ball, we already know how we dominate over there.
Right.
We already know, like, it's a reason why you have to get a guy that can move around and get the hell out the pocket because you have the Myles Garrett's, Chase Youngs of the world chasing after your quarterback. So you need a mobile guy that can get out of there. But I want to end it with this. You look at around the NFL and you look at a guy like Eric Bieniemy, who is one of, and you hear everyone say this, he's one of the great offensive minds in the NFL, but yet he cannot get a job. He can't. He jobs has been up. I don't even think he gets interviews, or he get the petty interview just because I have to interview a minority. Let's bring him in. And if you go to Miami, their head coach who came from the New England tree, I find it funny how I read an article the other day where they were saying he's on the hot seat or he's one of the coaches that has one of the most that has a lot of pressure. Despite him being 10-6 last year, missing the playoff by the game, he has some of the most pressure. Meanwhile, you have a guy like Matt Nagy in Chicago who, to me, just didn't handle that quarterback situation correctly at all. You have a guy like, first off, too, shout out to Mike Tomlin. And I know that's your boy. You always bring him up. Mike Tomlin, too, a guy that has took over Pittsburgh, and say what you want to say about him. They haven't missed a beat since he's taken over.
No,
They're
and
still
he's
the
one of the
Steelers.
most winningest coaches, regardless of
Yes,
his
sir.
color in the history of the NFL.
Yep. I want you to end it because we talked about Andrew Berry. Andrew Berry, who is the youngest GM in the NFL. Shout out to him. He's gotten the boys
Shout out to
together.
Andrew Berry.
He has built a tremendous squad, and he got us back to the playoffs. But for him, being a young African American running the organization, being the master of organizing everything and putting the product together, man. And let's end the topic. Let's go out talking about him. Take us out.
All right. Well, I mean, I think you made some great points, man. But outside of the QB position, outside of even a head coaching position, there's another movement on the rise, and I think we just proven, and that's what having African American GMs. Let me say this. Now, I'm not saying that because he's Black, that's what makes him great. What I'm saying is that it's proven now, and I think it will continue to be proven, that you can be great at the GM position regardless of what color you are, because traditionally that color has always gone to white men. And Andrew Berry, I think he's a Harvard graduate, in his 30s, young guy, mid 30s, came in, took over a team that had a lot of potential, had a lot of talent, but behind the scenes, you can see this guy is making moves to really build up a strong team that's going to win, hit playoffs every single season, and hopefully bring a Super Bowl back to our hometown. But it just proves the point. There's a lot of coaches that aren't getting the opportunity, and we know this. NFL, quote unquote, is supposedly supposed to be trying to change the racial tension or it be more in inclusive of players and staff members around the league. They're putting things on the end zone, putting little signs on the helmets. But I think the biggest thing that they can do is begin to hire Black coaches and give them the same opportunities that they've not been giving them for all these years. Hire Black GMs, because it's proven that you can be excellent at your position regardless of the color of your skin. Started with the QB, need to get some coaches on staff, and definitely in that GM spot. And we come in for that ownership box too.
Absolutely.
So that is the future of the NFL. Black athletes have changed the face, changed the culture of the NFL. And that's my take, my brother.
All right, man. I appreciate that. Appreciate you, the subscribers, the listeners, man. Thank you guys for everything that you've done to the channel, the support you've given us, the comments over the past few months and weeks. Every day our subscribers are going up. Every day our views are going up. We thank you guys so much. If you have any suggestions, anything that you want us to hit on, feel free to leave a comment. We are always in the comment section interacting with our listeners and our subscribers. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the Black Culture Podcast. And also, you can also, if you want to give a donation, if you feel like you want to give something to the podcast, we're on Cash App, $ the Black Culture Podcast. No support is too small. We appreciate everything. I am the Willie Ashford. That is Price. We are the Black Culture Podcast. Peace.